Oh, something just changed in the air around you. Something shifted in the frequency, in the energy, in the invisible battlefield where your reputation echoes louder than your voice ever could. And they felt it before you even announced it, before you posted about it, before you said a single word about your transformation. The people who doubted you, the ones who dismissed you, the ones who treated your existence like an inconvenience they could schedule around, they just felt a disturbance in their reality that's making them very, very uncomfortable right now. See, here's what happened while you were busy healing, while you were busy building yourself in silence, while you were busy discovering what you're actually worth. When you stop accepting breadcrumbs, you stopped leaking energy in their direction, you stopped checking if they noticed you, you stopped performing for an audience that never deserved front row seats to your evolution. And when you withdrew that attention, when you pulled back that energy, when you stopped feeding the dynamic they built their comfort on, something in the universe recalibrated itself around your new frequency. And now they're scrambling because the version of you they could predict, control, and manipulate just became unreachable. Not because you're playing games, not because you're trying to make them jealous, but because you genuinely evolved past the altitude where their opinions could touch you. You're flying at 30,000 feet, and they're still throwing rocks from the ground, wondering why none of them are landing. They're still using the old playbook, the old tactics, the old strategies that used to make you question yourself. And now those same moves are bouncing off you like rubber bullets hitting titanium. This is what untouchable self-worth looks like in real time. And it's terrifying for everyone who benefited from your uncertainty. Because when you didn't know your value, they could assign it. They could negotiate it down. They could convince you that what they offered was the best you'd ever get. They had you believing that their validation was the currency you needed to survive, that their approval was oxygen, that their presence in your life was a privilege you should protect at all costs, even when it cost you everything. But you know what's making them lose sleep right now? It's not that you changed. It's that you changed without their permission. You upgraded without consulting the committee that appointed themselves managers of your potential. You leveled up without asking if they thought you were ready. You became untouchable without checking if that was okay with people who needed you to be reachable, so they could reach you whenever they needed something. And that unauthorized evolution, that unannounced transformation, that's what's causing panic in rooms where your name still gets mentioned. They're having conversations about you right now, where someone's asking the question everyone's thinking, but nobody wants to say out loud. What happened to them? Why aren't they responding anymore? Why do they seem so different, so calm, so unbothered by things that used to break them? And the answer floating in that room, the one that's making everyone shift uncomfortably in their seats, is that you finally figured it out. You finally realized that your self-worth was never supposed to be determined by people who benefit from keeping it low. Picture the scene, because it's happening in multiple locations, in group chats, in phone calls, in conversations that start with your name and end with confused silence. Someone who used to have access to you, who used to be able to press your buttons like they installed them, just tried the old trick. They tried to make you feel small, tried to trigger your insecurities, tried to activate the doubt they trained you to carry, and instead of shrinking like you used to, instead of scrambling to prove yourself, instead of bending to make them comfortable, you just existed in your worth without defending it. That non-reaction, that unbothered energy, that refusal to engage with people trying to pull you back to a version of yourself you've outgrown, it sent a message louder than any comeback speech ever could. It told them that you're no longer available for the dynamics that require you to be less so they can feel like more. It announced without words that you've moved to a dimension of self-perception where their measurements don't apply anymore, where their scorecards are irrelevant, where their judgments have no jurisdiction. What they're actually afraid of isn't your confidence, isn't your growth, isn't even your success. What's keeping them up at 3 a.m, staring at ceilings, wondering what went wrong, is the fact that you're thriving without them. You're happy without their validation. You're building without their input. You're glowing without their light. And that reality is dismantling every story they told themselves about why you needed them. They convinced themselves you'd fall apart, They predicted you'd come crawling back. They bet on you breaking. And instead, you're out here building empires in the space where they expected ruins. You're laughing in moments they were certain would break you. You're attracting opportunities they swore you weren't qualified for. Every day you wake up solid in your worth is another day their predictions age like milk. Another day their assessments of your potential get exposed as projections of their limitations. Another day their certainty about your ceiling gets shattered by you walking through it like it was made of tissue paper. They're scared because your untouchable self-worth proves a truth they've been running from their entire lives. The truth that worth isn't conditional, validation isn't currency, and the people who spend their time determining everyone else's value usually do so because they're bankrupt in their own. Your evolution is holding up a mirror they don't want to look into, reflecting back all the ways they've been small, scared, and dependent on making others feel smaller to maintain their false sense of height. And here's the part that's really breaking their brains right now. You're not even mad at them anymore. You're not plotting revenge. You're not obsessing over what they did. You're not rehearsing confrontation speeches in the shower. You've reached a level of internal peace where they've become irrelevant, where their chapter in your story has been read, closed, and shelved in the section you don't visit anymore. That indifference, that genuine disinterest, that's more devastating to them than any anger could ever be. Let's talk about how you actually got here, because this didn't happen by accident. This untouchable self-worth you're carrying now, it was built in the darkest moments they hoped would destroy you. It was forged in the fires of betrayal they lit expecting you to burn. Every time they underestimated you, every time they counted you out, every time they celebrated too early thinking you were finished, you were collecting evidence. Evidence that you could survive their worst. Evidence that their opinions were just noise. Evidence that you were never as fragile as they needed you to believe. You tested yourself in situations that should have broken you and discovered you're made of something they don't have access to, something they can't synthesize in their laboratories of manipulation. You walked through valleys they swore were dead ends and found exits they insisted didn't exist. You climbed mountains they said were impossible with equipment they claimed was insufficient. And when you reached the summit, when you looked back at the path you traveled, something clicked. Something fundamental shifted in how you saw yourself. And that shift created the untouchable foundation you're standing on now. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every disappointment taught you standards. Every time someone showed you who they were and you finally believed them, you learned the most valuable lesson. That protecting your peace is more important than maintaining connections with people who disturb it. That being alone is better than being with people who make you feel lonely. That your self-worth isn't a democracy where everyone gets a vote. And when those lessons landed, when they stopped being concepts and became convictions, the transformation accelerated beyond anyone's ability to stop it. Now you move differently because you know differently. You speak differently because you value differently. You choose differently because you're measuring opportunities against a standard they can't manipulate anymore. Your decisions aren't based on who'll be impressed, who'll be angry, who'll approve or disapprove. Your decisions are based on what serves your peace, what aligns with your values, what honors the person you've fought too hard to become. And that alignment, that integrity between who you are and how you move, that's the armor they can't penetrate. So now we arrive at the question they're asking in those rooms where your name still echoes. The question keeping them up analyzing every interaction looking for clues. What's next? Where does someone go when they've become untouchable? How does someone operate when they've removed all the levers others used to control them? And the answer is wherever they want, however they want, with whoever they want, because untouchable self-worth is freedom in its purest form. You're not bound by their expectations anymore. You're not limited by their assessments. You're not contained by their projections of what someone like you is supposed to achieve. You're operating in open space now, in unlimited potential, in territory where the only ceiling is the one you accept. And you've stopped accepting ceilings built by people standing on the ground. They're watching you fly and trying to apply gravity that doesn't reach your altitude. trying to enforce rules that were never real, trying to maintain authority they never legitimately had. And what's beautiful, what's poetic, what's cosmically perfect about this whole situation is that you didn't become untouchable by defeating them. You became untouchable by outgrowing them, by evolving past the battlefield where they wanted to fight, by ascending to levels where their weapons don't work, because you're not made of what they're designed to damage anymore. You're not playing the game they're trying to win. You're not competing in the arena they're trying to dominate. You're not even speaking the language they're trying to argue in. They're screaming in a frequency you've transcended. They're fighting battles you've moved beyond. They're trying to hurt a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. And that's the ultimate form of untouchable, when you've transformed so completely that the attacks meant for who you were can't reach who you've become. When you've shed so many layers of false identity that the arrows aimed at your old self pass right through the space where you used to stand. When you've become so authentically yourself that impersonations of your worth sound like bad impressions everyone can see through. There was a moment, wasn't there? A specific moment when something inside you just snapped, when you stopped accepting less than you deserve, when you looked in the mirror and decided that the person staring back had been undervalued for the last time. Maybe it was after another betrayal, another disappointment, another situation where you gave everything and received nothing. Maybe it was a quiet moment alone, when you finally heard your own voice under all the noise of everyone else's opinions, expectations, and projections. Whatever that moment was, whoever you were before it and whoever you became after it, they're two different people. And the person you became, the one who decided their self-worth, was no longer up for negotiation. That person is who's scaring everyone right now. Because that person doesn't need permission, doesn't seek approval, doesn't wait for consensus before valuing themselves. That person knows their worth like they know their name, carries it like they carry their heartbeat, protects it like they protect their peace. And the people who knew the old you, the negotiable you, the uncertain you, they're experiencing whiplash trying to reconcile who you were with who you are. They keep testing the old boundaries, expecting them to give like they used to. Keep pressing the old buttons, expecting them to work like they did. But those boundaries are reinforced now. Those buttons are disconnected. And every failed attempt to manipulate you back to a lesser version of yourself just confirms that the transformation is real, permanent, and completely beyond their influence. This recognition moment, this awakening to your authentic value, it wasn't just about feeling better about yourself. It was about refusing to participate in your own diminishment, refusing to be complicit in your own undervaluing, refusing to accept narratives about your worth written by people who benefit from keeping it low. It was revolution disguised as self-love, rebellion disguised as self-care, warfare disguised as walking away. And now that the battle's been won, now that you've reclaimed the territory of your self-perception, you're untouchable because you're unreachable by anyone operating from that old paradigm. Here's what they're never going to tell you, what they hope you never fully realize, what would shatter their entire worldview if you embraced it completely. Your self-worth was always untouchable. You just forgot for a while. You just got convinced it was something you had to earn, maintain, defend, or prove. But worth isn't achievement, it's existence. It's the fundamental value of being alive, conscious, and taking up space in this reality. You were worthy before you accomplished anything. You'll be worthy if you never accomplish another thing. Your worth is sewn into the fabric of your being. Everything they did to make you question that, every tactic they employed to make you uncertain, every manipulation designed to make you depend on their validation, it was all smoke and mirrors. It was all projection from people who never found their own worth trying to feel valuable by determining yours. It was all theater performed by actors who forgot they were playing roles, who believed the characters so deeply they lost themselves in the performance. And you almost lost yourself watching their show, almost believed their reviews of your value were accurate. But something in you remembered. Something in you refused to forget completely. Something in you kept whispering the truth even when the lies were screaming. That whisper, that intuition, that knowing that outlasted all the gaslighting. That's what brought you here. That's what made you untouchable. Not some external achievement or validation, but the internal recognition of a truth that was always true. You just had to remember it, claim it, embody it, defend it against everyone, including yourself, when you'd been conditioned to doubt it. And now that you remember, now that now that you're standing solid in worth that doesn't fluctuate with circumstances or opinions, you're dangerous to every system built on making people feel worthless. You're a threat to every institution that profits from insecurity, every person who maintains power by diminishing others, every dynamic that requires someone to be small so someone else can feel big. Your untouchable self-worth is revolutionary. It's disruptive. It's the kind of energy that changes everything it touches because it refuses to accept the limitations others try to impose. So what does life look like from here? From this altitude where you're untouchable? From this space where your worth is no longer a variable in anyone else's equation? It looks like peace, real peace, the kind that doesn't depend on everything going right or everyone approving. It looks like confidence without arrogance, strength without aggression, power without the need to prove it every 5 minutes to people who wouldn't recognize it anyway. It looks like you, the real you, the you that was buried under years of other people's expectations, judgments, and projections. It looks like making decisions that serve you without guilt, setting boundaries without explanations, walking away from situations that don't honor you without looking back. It looks like building a life so aligned with your authentic self that every day feels like coming home. Every choice feels like self-respect. Every boundary feels like self-love. It looks like surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your worth instead of questioning it, who add to your peace instead of disturbing it, who see you clearly and love what they see. And the people who are shaking in fear right now, the ones who realize they can't touch you anymore, they're not actually your enemy. They're your teachers, your trainers, your boot camp instructors in the University of Self-Worth. They pushed you hard enough that you had to find your foundation. They doubted you loud enough that you had to find your own certainty. They tried to break you thoroughly enough that you had to discover what you're really made of. And what you're made of, what you've always been made of, is something unbreakable, untouchable, unstoppable. So let them shake, let them fear, let them scramble trying to figure out what happened to the person they thought they could control. You're not that person anymore. You're not interested in proving anything to people who couldn't see your value when it was right in front of them. You're busy building, busy growing, busy living a life so full of authentic worth that their opinions sound like background noise you barely register. You're untouchable now, not because you're unreachable, but because you're unshakable. And that makes all the difference. Everything they did to make you question that, every tactic they employed to make you uncertain, every manipulation designed to make you depend on their validation, it was all smoke and mirrors. It was all projection from people who never found their own worth, trying to feel valuable by determining yours. It was all theater performed by actors who forgot they were playing roles, who believed the characters so deeply they lost themselves in the performance. And you almost lost yourself watching their show, almost believed their reviews of your value were accurate. But something in you remembered. Something in you refused to forget completely. Something in you kept whispering the truth even when the lies were screaming. That whisper, that intuition, that knowing that outlasted all the gaslighting, that's what brought you here. That's what made you untouchable, not some external achievement or validation, but the internal recognition of a truth that was always true. You just had to remember it, claim it, embody it, defend it against everyone, including yourself, when you've been conditioned to doubt it. And now that you remember, now that you know, now that you're standing solid in worth that doesn't fluctuate with circumstances or opinions, you're dangerous to every system built on making people feel worthless. You're a threat to every institution that profits from insecurity, every person who maintains power by diminishing others, every dynamic that requires someone to be small so someone else can feel big. Your untouchable self-worth is revolutionary. It's disruptive. It's the kind of energy that changes everything it touches because it refuses to accept the limitations others try to impose.